For Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. This meeting is being broadcast live by Westford Cable Access TV and recorded for playback online. By participating in this meeting, you are agreeing to your likeness and audio being used for this purpose. The first item on our agenda is open forum. Do any members of the commission have something for open forum? Okay, so I do. So there are 3 members of the Conservation Commission whose terms expire on June 30th, 2026. Last September, the Select Board implemented a formal appointment process for boards, committees, and commissions for which it is the appointing authority. These boards, committees, and commissions should consider any applicant who has submitted a volunteer activity form in the past 2 years, along with any existing members who want to be considered for reappointment when the board or committee decides whom they will request the Select Board consider appointing to fill the terms that start July 1st. So residents who are interested in serving on the Conservation Commission should complete the volunteer activity form available on the town's website. Beginning in April, the Conservation Commission will contact residents who have submitted volunteer activity forms since March 2024 to confirm if they are still interested in serving on the commission. The commission will interview applicants in its public meetings on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday in May with the intention of sending requests for consideration of appointment letters to the Select Board the first week in June. I will be repeating this announcement at the next couple of meetings just so that people watching the playback know that if you're interested, you can fill out a volunteer activity form. So, does anybody in the audience have something for open forum?
Hi, June McMorrow, Kings Pine Road. I have 2 things that I wanted to mention. I had emailed to you and to Matthew some emails with my concerns, which had been brought to my attention on March 15th regarding vandalism that has been ongoing sometime during the winter at Camp Cielo Celeste, which is the camp property, the first one on the left that the recreation department uses for their summer recreation programs. This is not the furthest back one that Teamworks has been using. It's the first property. One of our neighbors approached me and said, was I aware of this? And I said, well, no, but I did go in and look, and that prompted my emails, and I had sent you photographs. I was looking through your packet on Sunday night, and I noticed that I don't think any of my communication had been included in the packet, and so I felt that the responsible thing for me to do was to come and follow up with you. So, as I had told you in the emails, the main cabin for Camp Cielo Celeste, the first bathroom on the right-hand side, the Charlie Brown cabin, the Schroeder cabin, and the director's cabin had all been broken into. One of the cabins has had the door kicked in. One of the screens was totally bent back. The Charlie Brown cabin apparently had some drums, which I guess the recreation department must use in their summer program. And a handful of the drums have had holes punched in the top of them. I don't imagine that the recreation department would have stored those like that over the winter. So I'm guessing whoever it was that broke into the cabins, and I think it was probably the same person who left the Corona beer cans. I'm just guessing. But I just wanted to make sure that the commissioners, as those who have care and custody of the property, are aware of that. And also, there's a lot of people within our community that use the property and care about it, and I think they would want to hear about this, because it's a serious issue, which just only seems to get worse as time goes on. I don't know if anybody has anything to say.
Well, I know that we're having a meeting with the select board, will be on their agenda. I believe it's the April 14th meeting. This has been a long time issue for us, as well as how we deal with some of this stuff. And so this is also our opportunity to enlist their help, because we as a board have care and custody, but also we have limited resources and limited powers available to us. But we really do appreciate, you know, your diligence, your documenting things with photographs, because that helps us being another set of eyes from the community.
Okay, thank you. The second thing I just wanted to mention is I did listen in on Monday night's Zoom session that dealt with pay-as-you-throw, and people were asking questions, and so I did ask a question. I noticed somebody that lives on Vinebrook Road had posed a question regarding, apparently they keep a trash barrel at the end of the street adjacent to the property going into Kennedy Pond, and her question was, you know, how would that work moving forward where everything is going to cost money now? I know that you're all aware, I had sent you a lot of photographs from last summer and the serious trash dumping issue that was going on at our camps last summer. And so I had asked Kristen, I had said that in the past, we tried to have a trash barrel there at one point, but that just really didn't work out too well. I think it just contributed to more dumping in the parking lot. And it's supposed to be a carry in, carry out, but a lot of people who come there on the weekends, I think they just feel like the rules are for thee, but not for me. And so I did ask Kristen, what the game plan would be moving forward as we move into this pay-as-you-throw era. And I think her answer is that they're working on it. So you're saying April 14th, you're gonna have a meeting with
the select board is starting a process where they want to have a short agenda item session with all the different boards for which they're the appointing authority. And at this point, they have coordinated with us that they look to have us on their April 14th agenda.
Okay, well, I'll make note of that and look forward to it. And as always, I thank you all for listening to me, and like moving into every summer season, I hope that something will change and we won't have the party goers up there every weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So moving on to our 7:05 p.m. agenda item, it's a public hearing for Burn 50 West Street.
Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171. The Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 25th, 2026 at 7:05 p.m. in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application of Patrick Byrne of Deckett for the construction of a 10 by 21 foot deck within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands at 50 West Street, Assessors Map 29, Parcel 10, Lot 0.
Yeah, if you want to you can have a seat at the table, tell us who you are.
Hello, my
No,
name is...
you can,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
My name is Roy Kent. I work for Deckett, and I'm representing this.
Yeah,
And
okay,
if you have any questions, I'm going to answer anything you have.
okay.
Closest point?
The
About
closest,
50 feet, I believe, is the buffer zone.
but in terms of looking at where the deck is located, one of the things we like to know is what's its closest point to the wetlands, just as a ballpark figure.
It's probably close to that, probably about 30 feet, but it's an elevated deck.
You need it on the plan that should show where the wetlands are or the distance to them.
Oh, you know what?
You have the
I can do this.
shows a BVD buffer, so I thought it was further away than that.
It runs through the house, right, 100?
Okay,
It's hard to see on this plan, just.
so,
The 100-foot cuts through his house, but the 30-foot cuts way down here, so.
Okay.
so I've got the plan up, so, the,
It's about 55 feet for the buffer.
What is this line? Is that the 100 foot?
I don't have that.
This is 100 foot.
Let me see, hold on a second.
100 looks like it goes up through the garage.
so, yeah, so this is the 100, this looks like the 100-foot buffer,
Oh, yeah, okay.
okay. So,
So currently, right now, in the back of the house is a small landing with a set of stairs that are coming down. And the proposal is to add a small deck, well, a little bit bigger than a small deck on the top side, where we use helicals instead of digging with concrete footings. So it's the least amount of, like, disturbance to the ground as possible.
So is that the 50-foot buffer right there?
It says it.
that's what it looks like.
Yeah, so he's.
Okay, so,
It's
so,
only like 10,
so you're well
20
out,
feet and-
He's well out, yeah.
Yeah.
this-
so it's, yeah,
He's
so,
probably
if-
on maintained lawn right now.
Yes, it's just lawn, and that's not gonna be disturbed. We're not gonna put anything there, no gravel, nothing like that. There will be a small pad for the bottom of the stairs, that's it,
a concrete pad.
yes.
In terms of what will be underneath the deck from a ground surface perspective?
Just the grass.
Just grass, okay. Where will the building materials be staged?
And the driveway, which is in the front part of the house.
Okay. Had Matt talked with you, oh, and you have the proposed hay bale, so you're all set there.
I don't believe we're gonna have a dumpster because the product is minimal.
Okay.
So we'll be taking rid of that, so that'll be one less thing.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the audience?
It's not
I
really-
mean,
No.
sorry, any members of the commission?
It's not really a conservation one, but I know that in the back of the library, the stairs that go up into the main entrance to the library don't meet the code. And I'm wondering how many steps, or what kind of height on the stairs?
The stairs are 7 1/4 on the step, so the maximum step could be 8 1/4. We're at 7 1/4, which is,
No, I mean, the total height from the top.
Or the number of
without-
steps?
But without a landing, how, is that satisfactory for the building inspector?
there's 12 steps.
For the building height, right,
Yeah.
right, but it's the height, there's no height shown how high the deck is from the ground. So there's
so
no- and
it
there's
would
no,
be-
and there's no landing on the stairs.
There's a
So
landing at the very bottom.
Yeah,
Well, there's
but there's no
13
landing for a
there's-
turn so that you
there's
have
13 or
it.
14 steps.
Okay.
There's
So,
12
I-
steps.
okay, but now, you'll need a building permit
13.
for this. Have you applied for that already? Or that'll come after you?
The building permit has already been applied for, and the conservation is the last step.
It's been applied for, do you have a building permit from the building inspector?
It's not approved yet, no, it's dependent on the conservation.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
That, I don't know if there's gonna be a requirement for the landing of some sort of halfway point, or,
We do, there's support there, and it's concrete footings that are at the bottom. Two like 1x1 concrete footings.
yeah, I think the concern is the length of a straight shot of stairway, how high it goes up as to whether that creates a fall
Oh, no.
concern.
No, it's within code as far as the amount of steps. Before, it has to be a center landing, yes.
Is that the as-built, or is that the next phase?
No,
That's-
that's
that's-
before,
That's proposed.
So the deck is,
on the bottom part.
Actually, there's that's a laser pointer, if you wanna direct our attention to anywhere on the plan.
Oh, it's hard to
It's
see
a
it.
little,
But if you look in the back, like at the very bottom there, where it has that little bump out there, the deck is going along that whole section.
Yep.
Mine is green.
okay, yeah,
So, yeah, it's going along that whole section. And currently, there are steps currently there, and we're just basically reproducing the same steps. So, the same amount of steps, things like that, is currently at the house. We're just bringing the deck forward, and the steps will be coming in front of that structure. So it'll be going into the deck more than it is currently.
All right.
Are there any comments or questions from members of the audience? No. Let's see.
So you're looking for a motion to approve?
I'm looking for a motion to issue, I just don't remember whether this is a conditional negative or just a straight negative.
Jim, when you write it off, was this a conditional, or was this a,
Just,
It's a RDA.
RDA,
Okay.
straight RDA.
to,
Can I have a,
condition?
The only thing I'm gonna write about it, the barriers, the silt barrier's already there,
yeah,
so.
okay,
And we can do that, we can put the straw bales there, the swaddles, or
I
the
think
silts.
they're on your plan already, right?
I'm not sure if they're on the plan, but.
Well, it's shown here,
Yeah.
proposed pavement.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
from the old plan, maybe.
They're on your plan, yeah.
let's see if Matt's given me any conditions. Okay. So, I would say, there are no conditions listed, so can I have a
You want
motion
negative
for
determin- or a positive
a
determination?
negative determination?
Okay. So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So Matt will be in touch with the paperwork,
Okay,
okay?
thank you, I'm sorry. I
No,
haven't done this.
neither have I.
I appreciate your time, though. I hope you have a good evening.
You're very
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you. So moving on to our 7:10 PM agenda item. It's a public hearing for Barnes 43R Beaverbrook Road. If you, oh, and just tell Nicholas to unmute himself, please. He's the guy that's on the phone.
Nicholas Burns, you on there, sir?
Yes, I am. I've unmuted.
Okay, we're gonna read the legal notice for your hearing, and we'll start with us. Under Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 25th, 2026, at 7:10 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application of Nicholas Barnes for the expansion of a paved driveway and associated grading within 100 feet of bordering land subject to flooding at 43R Beaverbrook Road, Assessors Map 19, Parcel 16, Lot 0.
So, Nicholas, was your wife gonna be here as well? Or just,
I beg your pardon. Could you repeat that, please? Sorry.
Matt had thought that that your wife might be in the room with us, but that you would also be on the phone?
Yeah. It's just me today. Unfortunately, I had a business trip, so I wasn't able to attend in person.
Okay. So if you want to explain a little bit of, or give us an overview of your project?
Sure. Absolutely. Well, good evening, everybody. The project consists of constructing an attached garage addition and a minor extension of the existing driveway. The garage is located outside the 100-foot buffer zone and outside the FEMA flood zone. A small portion of the driveway extension falls within the buffer zone, but remains outside the floodplain and within previously disturbed areas. No work is proposed within the wetlands or resource areas, and so we're requesting a negative determination.
Do members of the commission have any questions?
The distances are all to the property line, right?
What was that, Jim?
The distances that are shown for the proposed work are all to the property line, I think.
Yes, and I
They are.
believe Nicholas, oh yeah, I can see his label. So the blue line with some dashes in it or some breaks, that's the 100-foot buffer zone for the FEMA resource area. But that's.
Correct.
Yes.
The blue line with dashes in, as you mentioned, is the 100-foot buffer zone. If you were to look at the existing bitumen concourse driveway label, you can see the existing driveway that's there. There's that small triangle that is where is going to be extended, and that is the portion of the driveway that comes just slightly inside the buffer zone.
Okay, so it's the changes to your driveway rather than the building construction itself that is the reason for the public hearing or for the filing?
Correct.
Okay, so.
Correct, yes. It's just the extension of the driveway. And the driveway will be extended into previously disturbed land, which is currently a lawn.
Okay. And had Matt discussed any conditions with you regarding, for example, putting up erosion control or anything like that?
Yes, so we will install erosion controls such as silt fencing during the construction and maintain it until the site is stabilized.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions from members of the audience on this project?
Where are these erosion rules?
They're not shown on the plan, but what we could do is if we issue a conditional negative determination, then Matt would include the condition for erosion controls to be installed and inspected prior to the work beginning. Okay, so can I have a motion to issue a conditional negative determination?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Nicholas, Matt will be in touch with the paperwork.
That's great. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
as well.
Thank you.
Jim, can you click the end call button on the phone, please? I don't think we need to.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay, I think I said goodbye. You're not there anymore, right? All right, good. It's all right, it's all right.
Okay. Moving on to our 7:15 PM agenda item. It's a public hearing for 176 Concord Road.
Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetland bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 25th, 2026 at 7:15 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street. Consider the notice of intent application of Ben Nudler and Ally Walter for construction of a 56 by 13.3 foot detached accessory dwelling unit and associated utility connections within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands and bordering land subject to flooding at 176 Concord Road, Assessors Map 11, Parcel 50, Lot 2.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Mauro Environmental Consulting. It's nice to see you guys again. I am here representing the application for the notice of intent for 176 Concord. I see you guys are going to be looking at it on the TV, so I turned my board the other way so people that can't see the TV can look at my board. Anyway, what we have is a notice of intent for the construction of an accessory dwelling unit at 176 Concord Road. So I went out, I delineated a bordering vegetated wetland, which is essentially the lot. It's a triangular shaped lot. There's a large swamp that's behind off the property. Where the lot comes towards the swamp, there's actually a steep slope. The wetland was down at the bottom of the slope. You can see, I don't know if this thing works. Is this a pointer?
Yes, it is.
I don't
You
know if
should,
it works.
if it works, there's a green dot. You want, oh, yeah,
Yeah, I saw the green dot, I just don't see it on the screen.
okay,
Oh, there it is.
okay.
Okay. So we have the bordering vegetated wetland here. We have your 50-foot buffer zone here. We have your 100-foot buffer zone here. So this line right here is an erosion protection barrier. There is a detail on the plan right here showing wattles and silt fence. That would be placed as the erosion protection. It would go around the shape of the work. The septic system, with the exception of a small section of the main going out to the tank, is out of the 100-foot buffer zone. Here is the leach field on the septic system. This septic system has been approved by the Board of Health. The condition they put on it, probably in connection with a comment that Matt had made when we were reviewing the plans together, was that he wanted to see this area sleeved. So the Board of Health permit requires that that main be sleeved. The sleeve would provide extra protection against any leakage or anything like that within the buffer zone. The accessory dwelling unit itself is a, it's a small frost wall, it's not a full foundation. Any extraneous soil material would be taken off site. It's a pretty straightforward proposal. There's no work within 50 feet of a wetland. The only thing that Matt had noticed was that in that zone there was some debris and detritus that he's recommended to be removed, and then just have, plantings there to stabilize it, which is very easy to do. If you want to write that in the order, that would be awesome. And other than that, I'm open to questions.
Jim?
That, the picture that what got sent out today?
Yeah.
Was that debris?
That was
So,
this,
Where's the debris area?
So it would be basically right around the top of the slope, actually, in the backyard.
which is,
Right around the 50-foot buffer zone.
okay,
Sorry, the battery must be leaking because it goes off and then on again.
okay.
All right.
No, Lauren?
Are there any trees that need to be removed?
No.
Matt had mentioned in that letter that he sent you that one of the things he had raised was because of the debris at the top of the slope, that we might want to consider having posts put in with the standard placard that talks about, a no disturb buffer for a wetland resource area. I don't know what,
Yeah, I did forward that to my client yesterday. Are you guys okay with that? Just some posts and beams with placard basically at the top of the slope.
okay. So, Noel?
The ADU, what are the dimensions of that? Like, Looks
It
like it's
is, I
rectangular.
believe it's a it's a rectangle. It's actually a modular unit.
okay.
Does the contractor here?
Yep,
Okay,
it's
so,
16 by 56.
so it's 16 by 56.
And so you're just replacing it there with a crane or something?
Right now, they're feeling that they're gonna, if it goes with the slab, they're gonna roll it off a trailer onto the slab. If they have to, they train it on.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand the impact of during the construction, how much disturbance will be there.
The biggest thing during construction you're gonna have is the excavation, because they're gonna have to dig out to put the slab in for to the ADU.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have to dig trenches for the underground electrical water supply for the ADU.
Okay.
Then
And for
they're
the
gonna have to
septic.
dig for the leaching field and the septic and the tanks afterwards.
Right.
So it's gonna go in like 3 or 4 different phases, not one big excavation. You're gonna have to do it in units. So they'll come in, they'll do a section, they'll clean up the site, regrade it, make sure that everything's straight, then they'll move on to the next one. Not just dig the whole property.
Okay.
So just so you know too, the ADU itself is actually in an area that's lawn. There's no trees that are gonna be removed. So the work is not very intensive, no removal of stumps. With everything being controlled in phases, the impacts are basically gonna be limited to potential erosion, which is mitigated by the placement of the erosion control in that horseshoe-shaped area right there. And it'll be trenched in silt fence along with the wattles, so you've got a good double layer of protection on a flat area, because that area is actually very flat. So you're not having, like, if it rains heavy, you're not gonna have a lot of concentrated runoff like you would have behind the 50-foot zone where it goes down to a slope. This is a flat area, so potential for runoff is pretty slim.
Okay.
So this proposed ADU is within 100 feet of the buffer, which is fine, but it looks like the connection to the septic is within 100 feet,
Yes.
which is,
That's why he was talking about, they're talking about
Sleeve.
putting,
The sleeve.
a sleeve around the septic pipe.
Yeah, I want to make sure that, you know, it's at least up to par with what we've done in the past, because usually we, you know, would want something, at least with a sleeve and some sort of monitoring or something like that.
Okay, yeah, because it's not only within the 100-foot buffer, but it's also within 100 feet of the abutter's well. But you had said that the Board of Health has written that
The
into
Board of
their,
Health wrote that into the permit.
so the permit for the septic requires a sleeve as well.
Right, so Matt did talk about that with me, he actually sent me an email upon that. So I conversed with the septic designer, and basically we came up, we wrote a response here to Matt. So essentially, the system is laid out so that the tank is outside the 100-foot buffer zone, the leach field is outside of 100-foot buffer zone. The only item within the area is a very small portion of the building sewer to the ADU. Now, in order to actually get that outside the buffer, you'd actually have to move the ADU around, which would basically affect how it would sit relative to the existing house. So at that point, you're not just having to adjust the entire system, you have to adjust the entire ADU setup.
Well, it's aesthetics at that point.
No, it's not
I
aesthetics.
mean, when I look at that and I hear what you say, I hear it looking completely lined up and in order, but, you know, I'm looking at this and seeing if there's ways, if I can, you know, change the location of the ADU so I can put that line outside the 100, because, I mean, we wouldn't allow this unless you could indicate to us that there was no other way that you could do this that would put it outside, because we rarely, if ever, do this. And typically, it's been like a situation where something's already in place and you have to bring it up to maximum feasible compliance. But in this case, I've got nothing there. And, you know, you're wanting to put this ADU in, and I get that. But, you know, it's requiring, you know, that portion of the septic line to be in the 100, and that's outside. Our regulations don't allow that.
So you're
So I'm
talking,
just, you know, I'm looking at this and saying, well, you know, how can I adjust this ADU to be in compliance with our reg? As opposed to, you know, our reg doesn't allow this, and, you know, it's more like trying to seek some sort of relief or accommodation, and I don't know if we've done it like this.
from what I
Only where we've had an
understand,
existing situation where, you know, we've had to allow it to, you know, it's been more of a rehab. I can't think of where we've done this in a new, to me, this is new construction. It's putting something on a lot, but you're putting it somewhere where our regulations won't allow it because how it's going to be connected into the septic. So, you know, I would think at a minimum, there need to be some sort of alternatives and demonstrate that it absolutely couldn't happen any other way.
so to move everything around, you're now looking at the pump chamber longer runs, added components, and then you're dealing with power alarms, floats. There's a lot more mechanics that could wind up going wrong for just having to move less than a 30-foot section of line. That, again, it's already been approved by the Board of Health with a mandatory sleeve, which is what I know this commission in the past has allowed as an accommodation or a waiver. And that's what we're proposing here. We would comply with the Board of Health permit for a small amount of sleeve. For a small amount.
Done it on new versus existing?
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what
So-
I can't remember.
Well, and now, you show the 100-foot buffer line ending near the corner of the pool. Does that actually extend all the way across to the property line to the right?
Yes, it does extend.
Okay, yeah, because Eric, if I understand what you're saying, you're looking for some place, what you're asking about is could the ADU be relocated so that a corner of it that the septic connection would be made to is outside that 100-foot buffer?
And while it may require a little more work, I see opportunities to make it happen. You know, it may not be the most desirable, from the perspective of the homeowner, but I can see how it could be done such that it would meet our regulations.
Okay, so with all due respect, I disagree, because what's happening here is we're talking aesthetics. This has nothing to do with aesthetics. If we start tweaking that ADU around, we have to tweak the septic components around. And again, I just reiterated that if we move those septic components around, you're gonna create a lot more work in the buffer zone just to move that ADU out over a small section of line that is sleeved. And again, the Board of Health did take these into consideration when they approved it. It wasn't, and it was an approval that took a while too, because they did do a lot of studying on this. So, Mr. Carloni, when he designs these systems, he's very thoughtful to the placement. The first thing we did was we looked to make sure everything was out of the buffer zone. Even if for some reason you didn't go by a local bylaw and you had a Title V with 50 feet, he's gonna look to get it out of the buffer zone entirely, because that's what we do. So it's not really, and also I would remind, this square right here is an in-ground pool. So now you're tweaking the ADU up closer to the pool. And it creates more issue than what it actually would resolve.
Actually, how does that create an issue? If I bring that proposed ADU closer to the in-ground pool and outside the 100-foot buffer, I don't see what the issue is, other than aesthetics.
How do I put a porch on to get into it?
What was that?
How do I put a porch on to get into the ADU?
Well, right now, I can see this ADU being moved up out of this 100-foot area and being connected into the septic line without being, in that way, it meets our regulations. So, that would be my recommendation.
I understand what you're saying, sir, but if you go by just his drawings, mass drawings, you get the 50-foot buffer behind the ADU that looks like, if I did percentage-wise, it's gotta be 25 to 30 feet behind the ADU. Then you have the 100-foot buffer closer to the pool. So that means from the corner of the ADU to his tank, that can't be more than 12 feet.
So you're
From
saying,
the pool to the ADU, you got about
No,
12 feet.
The ADU to his first box.
Right.
That pipe can't be more than 12 feet long. It's
Are
not
you-
30 feet long or
I'm-
40 feet
okay,
long.
so,
It can't be more than 12 feet long. The
So-
ADU is 16
No,
feet.
I don't see why he can't move the ADU up and just, and bring that pipe right to it and be outside the 100.
is,
I guess that's what I'm missing.
okay, is there something, is there an offset that would require the structure and its slab to be a certain distance from the septic, the leach field?
Not from the leach field, but it probably would be an issue with the in-ground pool.
Oh, in
And
terms,
you have to be a certain distance, I forget what the distance is, you do have to be a
Yeah.
certain distance from the pool.
If I may, when we were looking at where we were going to put the ADU,
Mhm.
Ally, I'm the
Okay.
Walter and Nudler.
Yeah.
When we were looking at where to put the ADU, we had to take into consideration the setbacks from property lines and setbacks from the pool area. So it's 10 feet from the pool, and then, I forget exactly how far on the other side, but we were working with really close parameters.
so this is really helpful information, just for our meeting minutes and stuff. Can you come to the mic and tell us who you are and?
Yeah,
Also
because they gotta
make-
get it recorded.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we wanna get your information captured. Okay, all right.
My name is Alexandra Walter. I go by Allie. I am the Walter and Nudler. My fiance and I grew up in Westford, and now we're looking to build an ADU in his parents' backyard in order to stay closer to home and get to be a part of this community for as long as possible. When we were looking at the proposed ADU location, we had a couple of things to consider. In an ideal world, obviously we would be as far away from our parents' house as possible, give us some space for independence, but unfortunately we actually didn't have a lot of say in how far away it could go. The concern with turning the ADU, because I entirely understand wanting to keep it outside of the 100-foot buffer, our concern with the ADU is getting too close to property lines. So there was a couple things we had to take into consideration were the distance from the in-ground pool and the distance from the side property lines. As you can see, the property kind of comes in at an angle, so the further back that we go, the less room we have to turn without getting too close to property lines. And that is, I don't remember exactly the current distance of the proposed ADU to the pool, but that's pretty much as, that's the spot that we probably gotta put it in.
So you're saying that the location of the ADU meets the offset from the the required offset from the in-ground pool to the structure.
Correct, and the required offset from property lines, but again, it's very close. If there was anything that we had to move, that's gonna be a discussion. This is why we brought Eric, our general contractor, here as well, to help give insight on these things, because he's the expert and Matt's the
Okay.
expert as well.
So on the left side of the building, according to the existing plot plan and where they wanna put it, the setback's 15 feet, they have 15 feet 1 inch.
So this is 15 feet 1 inch here.
Correct.
Okay,
On the other side, I believe it's 15'6".
okay,
Because she's right, the property is a pop. So
And it's
the
shaped like a
farther back
cone.
you get, the tighter it gets. So that, for the offset for the pool, and for the offsets to meet the current code for the town, that's exactly where the ADU, which is the only place it fits.
And you said the offset to the pool to the ADU had to be 10 feet.
It has to be at least.
Okay, so when I'm looking at that, and I don't know if this is to scale, 1=20, but if I simply slid this up to the corner, so it was, so this corner was outside the 100, so you could hook it up. To me, that almost seems like you've got your 10-foot offset.
And then you're sitting on top of the tank, then you'd have to move the tank around, which means you'd have to move the leach field.
I have to do what?
The tank. So you start moving that stuff up, to get that line out of there, you affect the placement of the tank.
oh, so that's,
That's the septic tank. So
okay,
then you have to move the tank out, and then it just winds up changing the whole dynamic. It's like a domino effect, and that's what the septic designer was trying to say in the email to Matt, which I believe he shared with you.
yes,
So it creates a domino effect. It's not a matter of aesthetics, it's a matter of zoning, it's a matter of offsets, it's a matter of placement of the septic system. These were all taken into account when we went to the Board of Health.
okay.
He's right. So technically, if you're, like he's asking, can you move the ADU 10 feet forward? Sure, but now you're gonna move the tank 10 feet forward, and you're gonna move the leaching field 10 feet forward. So everything will change.
Okay.
So
So,
I'm not an expert,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm a relatively new health inspector in a different town, so I'm still learning septic, I've been on the job about a year, so I have a very basic understanding of septic plans, but, when looking at this plan, we had to do 2 separate tanks because of the slope from, like the house to the tank was just gonna be too far to connect us to the first tank. So we have actually the separate tank, as you can see towards the bottom, right near the 100-foot buffer zone, so we had to do that in order to have the correct slope and then going to the leaching field. If we went any closer, if that's even possible, not only would we have to consider the distance to property lines, but we'd also have to consider what it looks like, would we need to redesign the septic system. I, again, don't have that level of expertise and in-depth knowledge with this, but I know that the slope is a large consideration with the system as a whole because of the distance that we have.
so the leach field there is an existing leach field that has the capacity to, handle the additional effluent?
Yes, so we're adding on a 2-bedroom ADU, and the issue is that the current system is in failure, which
Okay.
is something we discovered in doing this project, was that the current system's in failure, so we're currently working on redoing that system, but it is considered new construction because we are adding the additional tank and
Yep.
the ADU. So it's a system that's gonna have to be taken apart and redone anyways. This is kind of just good timing all around for us to be taking a look at this and having somebody come out and do all of the testing for us.
Okay. So Eric, you've weighed in, other members of the commission have any comments or thoughts?
And that picture, is that the D box there between the tank?
Right here,
Yeah,
that's the septic tank right there.
the blue.
Yeah, but the
tank?
D-box is the square.
Is
What's
it
the square,
D box?
just in, the square that's just inside the 100-foot?
I think that square is a no. Let me take a close up.
Okay.
Eyesight's not what it used to be.
Well, that might be 11?
No, that's a note 11, it says sleeve building sewer.
Oh, okay.
So what he's telling you is basically that the sleeve is mandated. So that's his note on the fact that it has to be sleeved.
Okay.
And again, with limited knowledge, sorry if this is not helpful, I'll stop talking, but the D-box would come after the septic tank to the best of my knowledge because it's distributing the effluent to all of the
That's right.
lines of the leaching field, so that wouldn't come until the other side of it.
So, in terms of how the sleeving of the pipe would work. The sleeving starts inside the ADU structure itself?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, well,
That's my understanding.
this is.
Sleeve starts inside.
Yes.
Yes,
So
okay.
the sleeve would come up, whether it's a concrete slab or a foundation, up to the bottom of the building, and then the sleeve would penetrate outside and continue to the box.
And the
So it would be
sleeve,
double wound.
and the sleeve is constructed of what?
I'm not sure of that, I'd have to talk to the expert on that.
Okay.
Exactly what the construction is.
So,
I don't have the answer for you, but I'm happy to get the answer for you, and I can email if you provide me with an email address, but I have to ask Evan who designed the system.
okay. Part of me is just what I'm formulating through as a path forward in terms of, since this is a notice of intent, we'll need to do, and we'll have to do an order of conditions. This is not something that we could close tonight because we need to issue the order. In terms of setting ourselves up for the next meeting, what are other people's feelings about using a sleeve? I know this is not where, the sleeve is the type of thing we usually do when we're doing a, so for example, if the ADU was already in place and the septic system failed, then the sleeve would be part of maximum feasible compliance. So,
I mean, the system failures most commonly occur in the leach field,
right,
which is out of the buffer zone. The only other thing I could see, the only other component I could see happening for a failure would be maybe something with the tank. That's also out of the buffer zone.
no, but I'm talking more about the times that we've done components of the septic system inside the 100-foot buffer, and it's usually been a septic replacement. But yeah, so
Yeah, it's usually maximum feasible compliance for, an existing structure, not a new structure, as is the ADU.
okay,
So, I mean, typically we would have narrative in that, there was no other place that this could be put.
the 80.
And this is why the ADU had to, and this is why, we have to provide relief or accommodation.
So what you're saying is it would be helpful to have a write-up of all the steps that they took trying to
Yeah, a
locate.
narrative that.
A narrative of where, of all the other places, of
So
all
basically an
the.
alternatives analysis.
Yeah,
Basically,
just
yeah.
where, yeah, basically a narrative of what the steps you already took to see if there was a way you could have it outside the 100-foot buffer.
It's a rationale.
Pretty much everything you said,
Material
yeah,
of the
yeah.
sleeve.
We
And
have
the
that
material
would
of the
be- That
sleeve.
would be a record.
So that becomes part of the record so that the next person who comes along and they say, oh, well, we want to do this, and it's like, okay, do you have the same constraints as 176 Concord? Yes or no? And so it's basically laying the groundwork for the constraints are driving that this is really our only.
That there is no other alternative.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we're trying to determine here.
And who would you prefer writes that up? We've got a lot of people involved. We could get our professional
Okay,
land surveyor to
that
weigh
would
in.
be myself
Matt.
and
Okay.
Mr. Carlone.
And
Yeah.
where you're here and you heard our
Yes.
concerns.
Yeah.
it's-
Okay,
That would be
yeah,
a way
just
forward.
in terms of a description of what the decision process was, what options were considered, so that we have that as part of the record. Jim?
Maybe I'm missing something. I'm going back to what Eric's concerned at the 100-foot buffer. This well up here is gonna be decommissioned, right?
We're connecting to town water.
That well's gonna be decommissioned, I think, right? That's what it says in the note, existing well to be decommissioned.
Oh, okay.
So that one's going away. That means this 100-foot radius goes away. which means you do have room to move this up without getting closer to the property line, and leaves more room here, so that if you wanted to, you could move the ADU closer. Moving the ADU closer increases this distance, which you said was a concern, and increases this distance, which is another 6 inches, but also a concern. So I think, given that that well's going away, and that this 100-foot arc is also going away, you have the room to move the septic system to the south, parallel with the property line, and then you can move the whole ADU, literally that distance right there, and then stay out of the 100-foot buffer completely.
That would have to be something that I
I'll
ask
I'll
the
go,
experts on.
I'll review that with Mr. Crowley.
That's appreciated.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll review that with Evan,
What,
the septic designer.
The elimination of the well?
Yes,
Whether,
because I'm sure he took that into consideration when he designed that system.
But you
So
can-
there's an underlying reason why it's there,
And if that's
regardless of the decommission.
We'll find out at our next meeting.
So
Let's
it's,
find out.
If that's so, it could be in your narrative, and then it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm
Agreed.
sure it would be.
yes,
Agreed, no, we're all on the
Okay,
same page,
okay.
actually.
Okay.
So-
okay,
So you would have done due diligence in checking it out.
yeah. And it,
Okay.
we like to have that paper trail as part of the filing.
Because next week we'll have somebody who said you just did that.
No,
Okay.
and a year or two from now, you know,
Yeah.
I usually-
elections fade, people come and go. And, you know, we find that if we don't have that narrative and it's not part of the file,
We're in trouble.
No, I get it. With my commission, because I'm actually on a commission too, I like to say if we get hit by a bus the next day, we'll have a record of what really happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. It might be a little painful, but it'll work through.
So, I don't remember whether I asked, so I'll ask again. Do any members of the audience have comments or questions on this project? No. Okay, so,
Continue.
we would continue to our April 8th meeting. And then Matt, you'd be sending Matt the narrative?
Yep, let me just double check my schedule here.
Okay.
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 Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I have, there's another meeting I had scheduled in Grafton, but I can have somebody else cover that. So
Okay.
That's fine.
And I will also ask Matt to see if he can get a draft order of conditions for the meeting as well. That way, if everything lines up, we can take care of everything in just one meeting rather than having to look at two.
Yep, no, I'll coordinate with Matt on that, and we'll take care of it.
Okay.
Before we go, I just wanted to say I also got the email this morning about like the debris in the yard, and we've already identified it and we've made a plan to move it. So that's
Thank
already
you.
in the works. We
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it just, one of the things I think that was in Matt's email was,
Yeah.
something like a post and rail fence, or just
perfect.
something so that people in the future are saying, oh, no, I shouldn't just take it down there and dump it.
I agree. Yes.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
So can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to April 8th?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, great, thank you guys, really appreciate your time and the discussion, it's very helpful.
Thank you.
Very much
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to our 7:25 PM agenda item. It's a public hearing for Premium Homes LLC, 17 and 19 Hartford Road.
Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetland bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 25th, 2026, at 7:25 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application of Premium Homes LLC for demolition of an existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling, retaining wall, driveway, and water line, and associated grading and tree removal, portions of which are within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands at 17 and 19 Hartford Road, Assessors Map 20, Parcel 75, Lots 1 and 10.
Okay. So,
That's not it.
I know. I am not Matt. Don't even play Matt. Okay, NOI. Oh, NOI plan. Okay.
There we go. All right, good evening, Mark Slager from Allen Engineering, here on behalf of Premium Homes. You may recall, we were here last fall requesting a request for determination to demolish the existing house at 19. And the thing here isn't working.
I think Matt wore the batteries out. You want to
Yeah.
borrow mine?
Oh, you have one, all right. Which button?
The red one. Yeah, you're on the,
There we go, yeah, so this is the house. If we had a bigger screen, we could scroll down to Hartford Road. So we have an existing house right here at house number 19. There's an existing driveway up and around right in through here, and then there's another existing driveway that goes off into this side of the house. Both of them were actively used when the house was occupied. What we're proposing, we did an A&R plan last year, possibly the year before, I don't recall, carving out 2 lots. We've got 200 feet of frontage for each lot. So we meet the zoning for each lot. What we're proposing is to construct 2 new houses after demoing the first house, and we're using the existing driveway for each house. So there's an existing driveway here, existing driveway here. We're utilizing that as much as possible, and then creeping onto the lot so we maintain the 50-foot no disturb buffer, which is this dash line here, for the construction of this driveway. In here, where it's already an existing dirt driveway, we will be within the 50-foot, but it's previously disturbed, so we meet the 30-foot setback, which is right here. So we'll be quickly getting outside of the 30 and then well beyond the 50 out to here to service the house. The septics for each house is one septic here and another septic here. Both will be served by town water. Currently, this house is on a well that will be decommissioned as the same as the septic tank and septic system, which we believe is over here. We don't really have great records of where it is, but during the demolition of the house, we will recover the location of the tank and decommission the system in accordance with state and local regulations. There'll be a new service in water service coming in off of Hartford Road up to here, and another one coming in following the driveway up here. We'll also be using underground electric for the first house. I believe there's overhead electric already on this one. We're not sure whether it's going to remain under overhead or maybe go in with underground electric here as well. The total disturbed area is just under an acre of land. So we have the silt fence around here, and then in the front yard we have orange construction fence that will go in here just to make sure we don't disturb more than an acre. We've had this situation in one other filing where the tree clearer wasn't as careful as he should have been. So we're proposing orange construction fence, and I'm gonna go out and stake that myself, or stake out where it goes and inspect it before they do any work, just to make sure we maintain the under an acre of land disturbance. We are also proposing these red signs. These are the construction signs, or conservation signs rather. They'll either be either the posts or there'll be signs mounted on trees. As far as the wetland delineation, you may recall this was part of a larger development. This was remaining land. Actually, part of this was remaining land for the Colonel Rolls Drive subdivision. This wetland was approved under that project. The order of conditions was issued in 2020, I believe. So the delineation is probably 6 or 7 years old, but it has been renewed for the purposes of Colonel Rolls Drive. Matt suggested that we may want to have someone go out and reconfirm the flag locations, just to make sure the wetland didn't migrate further away from where we want to work, which is probably not likely. And with that, I'll turn it over to the commission and be happy to answer any questions.
How many trees in the buffer zone are being removed?
I don't know, we didn't inventory all the trees. There is a tree, you can see the tree line right in here, that's gonna be preserved, all of the trees out in the front. This is the tree line, the existing tree line, right here, and it goes out around in here. So this is the main clearing, but there will be quite a few trees coming down where the house is.
Now, how densely is that wooded? Is that larger mature trees, or is it, more?
I think it's a mix of both. It's mostly mature trees, but there is some understory there that's established as well,
Is there any plan for replacing any of the trees?
if that's what the commission wants. Yeah, I don't know.
Always.
I mean, we'll probably do some additional plantings. This is the 100-foot buffer right here.
Yeah, most of it's
So
out.
a lot of the work is gonna be outside the 100-foot buffer. So we've got a 75-foot buffer here and a 100-foot buffer right in through here. So this is where the most of the tree clearing is gonna occur. Out in here, we're outside the 100-foot buffer. So for,
Well, that's why I only asked how many inside.
Can you get a count? Can you get a count?
sure.
Well, what's the minimum caliber you want them to count? Well, and actually, in looking at how close the tree line is to that driveway, and then portions of the dwelling as well,
You
a lot
wonder
of
if that's gonna come back to us
a lot.
later
Yeah,
on?
is the developers fine building that close to the large trees, and then
But the homeowner
homeowners?
might have issue later on.
Yeah, or just, and I'm thinking with this past winter, if there are large trees, what the health of the trees is, does that, it just,
I think probably, the way to handle that would, once we get the erosion controls staked out, Matt and I could walk it, possibly before they put the silt fence in.
okay,
And if we need to go around some trees and move the driveway further away from the wetland, we do have plenty of room. There is an easement here, it's an existing easement, but we can easily modify an easement.
okay. Yeah, because the other thing that I'm thinking is, it's not just where the trunk comes out of the ground, but if you've got large mature trees,
Right.
you're actually almost more concerned about, let's not damage, let's not damage the root structure, because that is then what leads to losing the tree down the road.
Right.
So, yeah.
So the geomat leach system, different than our regular, typical leaching system on a, for a septic field?
Yeah, they're a new technology. They've been around for quite a few years. I've done a lot of them over at some of the other subdivisions, like Colonel Rolls and Spalding Hill Estates. We've done a lot of them. There have been issues that I've heard about because they do require, or they do allow a 2-inch leach lateral, and those are the systems that they've had some problems with, so they recommend that we stick with a 4-inch leach lateral, which is what I'm proposing. But aside from that,
Is it a simpler system to put in? Is it lesser or greater?
There's less
distance
fill.
from the groundwater? I'm just trying to understand the difference between this and a typical.
Well, it takes up less area.
Okay.
So you'll need less fill. And typically what I do when I design my systems is I leave a 5-foot space, and then I provide an HDPE barrier. That way you don't have to go 15 feet from the system to start your slope. You can go 5 feet, so you save quite a bit of fill on the downside.
Okay.
These are basically a 1-inch thick mesh with a sleeve for a pipe to go in, and the leach lateral it disperses through the mesh and then goes into the sand. So the mesh actually replaces the stone.
So if you had to replace it, you would simply pull out that system and put another geomat in?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And these systems, in order to prove that you get, that you can use a geomat, you have to prove that you can fit a conventional system on the lot that has the same capacity. So there is room to put a conventional system in. I propose a geomat because it takes up less space, there's less clearing. You know, if down the road they need to replace the system and they want to put a conventional one.
Life expectancy is kind of the same equivalent between this and a typical system?
These are about, I think, 40% smaller in footprint.
Yeah, about life expectancy.
They're about, I don't know. I don't know if they've been around as long as the stone and pipe systems. It's more a matter of the soil. The soil here is pretty good.
Okay.
It's like 3 minutes an inch, 5 minutes an inch. And it's a more matter of maintenance too. You know, a lot of the times people use more water than the system needs, can handle, or they put in a garbage grinder, and then when it fails, they take it out. And
No problem. Just,
Yeah.
I was curious.
Mhm.
Any other questions from members of the commission? Any questions from members of the audience? Okay, so, at this point, there's no additional information that we need for this. So continue to the April 8th meeting and, look to see if Matt can get some draft orders out.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing till April 8th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Moving on to our 7:35 PM agenda item, it's continue a public hearing for 419 Littleton Road. And they've been watching us. Listen.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, just a moment.
We're at 219 North Littleton Road, right? Okay. Just want to make sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Matt today and I keep,
We're in a lot of ads.
Yeah.
and I keep forgetting
That's okay.
what we need to do. Okay, so this is, let's see, you had sent some new plans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the civil review.
Oh, I think it was the one above it. Is it that one?
Let's try that one.
That should be it,
Yes,
Yeah.
okay,
That's good.
so
Yeah,
let me,
it is.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
okay, so,
So, to reintroduce myself, I'm Katie Cruz from Hancock Associates Civil Engineer. I'm here tonight with Bridget Doherty from Arrow Street, who is architect for the project. Sean Sanger from Copley Wolf is here, landscape architect. Elizabeth Bejo from Redgate, proponent, and Melissa Robbins, project attorney. Tonight we wanted to talk to you about the drainage design and the peer review and utilities. And then Bridget will talk a little bit about architecture and sustainability. And then Sean will finish up with the layout changes that were made in response to the comments from the last meeting. And more information on the landscaping and planting design to address some of her comments as well. We did get the comments through Matt Salem that you sent, I think, Monday or Tuesday this week. Thank you for sending those. We'll address a few of those tonight. I did see the request for Ty and Bond to comment on the porous pavement design, so I forwarded that along to them. So we'll follow up with that when we hear back from them. I think that's it. So So if that sounds okay, I'll get started on stormwater.
Can you talk in the mic at all?
No, the mic doesn't, the mic only goes to Westford
Forget
Cable.
it.
I'll turn my head
Forget
this
it.
way though,
Yes.
so you can hear me.
Okay.
So, I'll do an overview of the stormwater system again, just to remind us all about the design, and then I'll talk a little bit about Ty and Bond's peer review, and where we've gotten so far with that. A reminder that this site is a redevelopment under the Massachusetts stormwater standards. That is because the project will decrease impervious area. We have about a ½ acre less of impervious area in the proposed condition than we do in the current condition. That does not take into account the areas of porous pavement. For the purpose of our design, we considered those to be impervious, so we went kind of conservative there. So we didn't account for surface infiltration in our model. So there are several components of the stormwater system, which was really designed to fit the constraints of the site. As you know, this is a very wet site. There's a lot of wetlands on the site. Related to that, there is high groundwater. So that kind of put a limit on what we could do for stormwater recharge BMPs, just because of the vertical depth available. So where we could, and in purple on this plan, we have systems of underground chambers.
If the larger, yeah, the one with the red button will let you direct. Yes, there you are.
Okay, so that would be this rectangle here and this one here. So those you've probably seen on a lot of other projects. They're like underground stormwater detention basins. They're plastic chambers surrounded by crushed stone. They're equipped with what's called isolator rows, so some of the rows of chambers are wrapped in filter fabric to provide water quality treatment. And we did as much of that as possible. This design is designed to meet the standards to the best we could for the constraints of the site. So we have a lot of roof area and a lot of pavement area going to those systems. They're located in an area on the site where we have more depth to groundwater. So that's how we were able to achieve that there. And so we kind of did as much as we could for recharge. The other way that we're addressing stormwater recharge, which is trying to put surface water back into groundwater, is we have recharge volumes in crushed stone underneath the various porous pavement cells. So those are shown in light blue. There's one here. There's several of them on this side of the plan. And then if you were to scroll down a little bit, there are a few closer to Littleton Road. The reason we selected that BMP it's because it's a shallow BMP, so we could locate it in areas with higher groundwater and still provide some recharge volume. And really what we were trying to do there is to provide as much recharge volume as we could on the site. The porous pavement also provides water quality treatment. We do have a rain garden proposed in green, which is here. And we located that there because we could. The other landscaped islands were either over the proposed effluent field, or they're in areas where there are mature trees, or we have steeper slopes. So we put in that rain garden where the conditions were allowable, so that would be the traditional planted rain garden. There'll be surface runoff into that, and then overflow from the rain garden will drain to the chamber systems. And then lastly, in the upper right corner of the site, this is where we have the highest groundwater. And in that location, we weren't able to get the separation to groundwater under porous pavement there. So what we did is we're providing catch basins with filtration inserts. So So those filters can address the needs for phosphorus and nitrogen removal, as well as total suspended solids. And those are a little hard to see, but those are the orange dots up in this area. We designed the system to try to mimic the existing drainage patterns on the site. So we tried to approximate about the same amount of water that goes to each wetland. So we divided up the site intentionally that way so that we don't alter the conditions of those wetlands. The 3 wetlands are connected. So the one on the Cornerstone side and the one central to the site, those have existing piped outlets to the wetlands associated with Vinebrook. And I'll talk a little bit about Ty and Bond's comments. We met with them last week. We had a very productive meeting, and we're able to address all of their comments on the stormwater system. Some of those were providing more clarification on the site conditions, such as groundwater and subsurface soils. We've added, we will be adding a few drains at their suggestion. We also adjusted our stormwater model to reflect a larger storm event. They asked us to use slightly different data than we had been using, so that bumped up the inches per storm by about a 1/4 inch for each one. So our system is able to accommodate those. So that's it for stormwater. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on that before we move on.
Any questions on the stormwater?
No.
Okay. Jim?
One of the things that's important to do is the pervious areas require maintenance so that they stay pervious over time. How do you do that? What actually happens to remove the silt and sand that clogs up the pores?
So one thing is being careful about what you put there. So these areas would not be sanded, but they get vacuumed periodically.
It's a vacuum system that pulls out the dust and dirt.
So what we recommend for our clients is instead of having a vac truck come in, they can buy more of like a driving lawnmower type vehicle that they can keep on site and bring out. I think it's quarterly per year, and they go over them and remove all of that material.
If maintenance is done in whatever schedule it is every quarter, they'll last forever?
It would have about the same life expectancy as typical pavement, so about 20 years.
All right, thank you.
Now with that, when you were talking about using a vacuum truck to basically suck stuff up out of it, is that the kind of thing that can be done during frozen ground times? Thinking about what this last winter has been, if the date for that maintenance activity occurs, can that occur during winter conditions?
Absolutely. I think they would choose a sunny day with dry conditions, but yes, it could happen year round.
Okay. Okay. But when you talk about not putting anything on the porous pavement, is that by not treating it to deal with ice and stuff like that, does that mean that it would be not getting down to bare pavement as quickly as other portions of the site?
So it would function a little bit different than typical pavement. One thing about porous pavement, and what it really is it's like typical pavement, where it has the tar product and it has the larger stones, the aggregates. It just doesn't have the fine aggregates in it, so like the sand kind of material. That's how it leaves the gaps that the water can flow through. But that also allows air to come up. And it's sort of more like how you would see a gravel surface where they just don't get super icy because the air can flow through. And if needed, there could be some de-icing, there could be extra care taken for snow removal. The on-site maintenance would be aware that this type of pavement is here and it needs a little extra care.
Okay. Is there a next page you'd like me to continue to?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'll talk briefly about utilities before I hand over to Bridget. I think we talked a little bit. There will be an on-site wastewater treatment facility. The site conditions for that have been approved by DEP already. The design for that system is underway. It'll generally be in the location that's shown in orange on this plan. So these are tanks related to the system here and here, and then these larger orange rectangles, sorry, are the effluent field. And when that design is complete, we would provide that tie-in bond, as well as having DEP go through their approval process for that. We have water and electric services coming in from the street, like you would see for typical projects. One run of services is through here. This is a transformer over here, and then the second run would come into this building over here. So nothing too exciting about utilities on this site, pretty straightforward.
Ready for me to move on?
Yes.
Okay. Which slide would you want me to go to next?
This is good.
Okay.
I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit about the architecture and the sustainable features of the project. And this is our rendered site plan.
Just for the record, can you remind us who you are?
Yes, my name is Bridget Doherty, and I'm with Arrow Street. I'm the architect and project manager.
Thank you.
And so, as you can see from our plan here, the buildings have been designed to really weave around the natural features of the site. And they're really designed to preserve and provide breathing space really to the wetlands, preserving the groves of old growth trees that we have up in the northwest corner here, and preserving the really important trees that we have on site. And the buildings have been organized to provide as many views for residents out to these resources, to the wetlands, really along the backs of the buildings, kind of opening up to really enhance and express the value of those spaces to the residents. And we've been working very hard and continuing to work hard with Copley Wolf and Hancock to design a site that is really sensitive to the existing features here.
No.
Just go to the next
Yeah, I
one.
think you can go to the next one too.
Okay.
Yep. So the design of the exterior and the architecture is really influenced by the existing barn and Greek Revival farmhouse that are on site today. And you can see that we've taken a lot of inspiration from the gabled roof forms, the dormers, the lofted spaces. This is a picture down here of inside the barn. This is the barn here. And we've done this in a modern interpretation. Rendering of the building is down here in the lower left corner. So we're using materials such as natural wood and a neutral color palette to really provide a backdrop to all the landscaping that's going to be part of this project. Move on to the next one.
Can we go back up?
Sure.
I just want to know what the colored lines are.
Yeah, I can describe those.
Yeah, I was curious.
So I'll start outward and move inward. So the purple line is the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. Inside of that is the yellow line. That's the limit of building. Inside of that, the orange line is the limit of work line. And then in light blue, kind of going from upper left to lower right, is the 200-foot riverfront area, and in dark purple is the 100-foot in a riparian zone. The kind of brighter green lines are the edge of bordering vegetated wetland, and the light green line delineates Vine Brook.
So when I'm at this building over here on the right.
Oh, this one here?
There you go. The purple is
100 foot.
100 feet. And that's your 55 or your limit of work, or what is that line again?
55-foot limit of building is the
Okay.
yellow line, and the orange line is the 30-foot limit of work.
And I remember at our last discussion, you know, we were talking about, you know, trying to keep those buildings, and I think previously there were decks out to the back there, and we were worried about, you know, that getting too much of an intensive use, people almost thinking it was like an exclusive use zone. So since that discussion, have there been any changes?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah, I can speak to
Okay,
that. I don't-
that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm Sean Sanger, landscape architect with Copley Wolf, and I don't think you were at our last meeting.
No, I
so I think,
wasn't.
yeah, there's some stuff here that's gonna be new to you.
Yeah.
So just briefly along those lines, and those, the kind of the back of what we're calling Building B, is we have removed the walkway from there entirely.
Yep.
So you are still seeing some kind of rectangles off the back. Those are decks, but they have railings that will wrap around those that will essentially contain the individual residents, if you will, within that space. So they have.
there's no steps
No,
down
none
into the-
whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah, that has
All right.
been really, in our minds, hopefully perceived as being simplified, but yeah, definitely all of that was taken out. And a lot of that honestly came from comments and feedback. We were really responding to what we're hearing from you guys.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can go through some other changes we made after Bridget had a chance to
Yeah.
talk through the architecture
Okay.
behind Building A.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, I think, and clean.
So Eric, was there any more you wanted to, we will dive back into details later, but is there anything more that you want to talk about on this slide before we go back to what we will, the pages, subsequent pages?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So I think this is where we
This
left
page.
off.
Yep, so this is a view, rendered view from the entry drive, taken from the perspective of a pedestrian on the sidewalk. And you can see how we have used the expressed gabled ends to denote the entrances. The entrance to Building A is in front of you, kind of straight off in the view, and the entrance to Building B is over here to the right. And we're also breaking down the scale of the building by creating these breaks in the roof forms, and it kind of helps to break down into smaller forms within the landscape.
So it's 4 floors?
It's 4 floors, yes.
And what is it currently now? The Regency?
I think it's
3?
4, it is 4.
Is it 4?
There's a fun history about it too, Eric, we can talk about later, but yeah.
You can go to the next slide. And this is just another similar view taken from the entry drive as well, but from the point of view of the vehicle. And you can see how the street trees and the landscaping on the left and the trees kind of off to your right in the distance are really shielding a lot of the building and making for a nice pedestrian experience here.
How many years was the hotel here? Do we know?
How many years was the
I
hotel?
remember it
Oh,
was-
jeez. The grand opening sign was in the barn when we just went through it, but the grand opening was in the 80s. Yes.
So some of the sustainable features of the building, I think one of the most notable ones is that this building will be all electric, which means it'll be net zero ready. So there will be high efficiency heat pumps and energy recovery ventilators for fresh air. The hot water heaters will be electric resistant instead of gas fired. And the roofs at the garages will be solar ready. We'll have 20% EV ready parking on site. We'll have a very high-performing envelope with triple glazed windows, continuous insulation outboard of the framing and air sealing. And we're reducing our water use with low flow plumbing fixtures in all of the residential units and common spaces. We think it's very important to always select healthy materials so that they have low VOC, and we have a very good indoor air quality. And we look for materials that are Red List compliant, looking at the ingredients and making sure we're not selecting ones that are banned on the Red List because of the chemicals. And since we are reusing the existing historic house and barn, we're inherently diverting waste from the landfill if we had been removing it, and we're lowering our carbon footprint by not building something there in its place. And we will have a construction waste management plan with the contractor, which will divert a portion of the construction waste from landfills to recycling facilities.
So only the garages will be solar ready, why not the building roofs as well?
They're not all, it's harder to control the orientation for optimal use with the slope and the snaking condition of the building, but with the garages, because we have the flat roof, we are able to, those would be more conducive to the orienting the PV panels, and because the back side of the roof will get a lot of shade from the sloped portion, they would really shade the solar panels on the back flat part of the roof.
And why is it only solar ready and not solar happening?
That's just something that we always work with the client on, and that can certainly change at any time.
And last question.
Sure.
How much energy, well, I guess it will depend when the rays actually go in on what their capacity is, but what is the anticipated energy, like how much would just the garage roofs produce?
We haven't calculated that, but we can get back to you on that.
Not germane to this. None of this discussion is germane to what we're discussing right here. So this is just, you know, something, but it's not in regards to what we have, you know, a hearing about. One thing I do want to talk about is, okay, we've seen this tree planting and all of this close to the buildings and stuff like that. What happens in 20 or 25 years when these trees become overgrown, too close to the buildings? You know, what we're seeing in some instances where you have trees that are close, we really need to make sure that they're such that, you know, in 10 or 15, they're not going to come back and say they've grown too large, they're shadowing, they're up against the building, you know, we cut them down.
Well, and I think, you know, and I know the places you're talking about, I think the places where we've seen that is where there's, you know, is some of that is native vegetation that's allowed to grow, and the buildings are extremely close to the wetlands.
I'm saying big trees, and there's discussion, and I like that, but I just want to make sure at the end of the day, we're not building it so close that we actually have to take them down.
Well, and I think, you know, so it's, some of that gets into the discussion of intentionally planted trees versus the existing wooded areas that are on site. So I think this is your alley.
Yeah, Margaret, I can definitely chime in there. So honestly, we've been very strategic about the open space dimensions and widths, if you will, around the base of the buildings. So where we have, Eric, a lot more room, we are doing larger, wider canopy trees that over time will hopefully get into that 50, 60 foot and with some width. Where we have tighter areas closer to the buildings, we are using either more of an upright form tree. It won't get the, you know, 30, 40 feet wide. It'll be a little more tight, a little tighter, if you will. And then areas where we're, you know, even narrower, we aren't doing shade trees at all, but we are planting more of a proposed ornamental scale, like a patio scale tree. So we're trying to be really sensitive to your comments about how much room you have and where we're planting these relative to the buildings.
No, and I'm glad to hear that, because sometimes it doesn't get to that level of detail, and then we have to deal with it after the fact. So,
Well, and
We do have a planting list. Actually, this one, Margaret, is completely, they're all labeled. And then if you go to the next page, there is a plant schedule that goes with that, right there.
Yeah, and,
It's gonna be really hard to read.
well,
No doubt.
and it was in the revised meeting packet. So yes, what you're saying is that if theoretically we look at the planting plan and we can see a code that tells us which tree is being
Yes.
planted.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I keep coming back to is when we look at the existing condition plan, on both sides of this wetland edge, there's an existing wooded area. That is not shown on these plans. And so, that, in terms of understanding what existing wooded vegetation is going to be left, is a lot of what we like to do is leave the native vegetation that's grown in place, because that's got a head start on everything.
Sure.
That's stuff that we know already likes where it is. So that's something that every time I look at these plans and I don't see that existing edge of woods on it, it just,
It's something you wanna see.
We can make sure that
Yeah.
line is on there, that's bold enough that you can see it.
okay, yeah, because it just, that existing wooded edge. Oh, this might be a good time. One of the things that Matt had been talking about is doing a site visit.
And
Now
that's what I was just gonna bring up.
Yeah.
We could add it to the plan, but I think now that all of the snow is melted, it'd be good to get out there on site, because then we can compare.
Yeah.
So we could schedule that at the end of the hearing if the commission would like.
Well-
Or we can do it after the commission through your agent.
Matt had been talking about April 7th, which is a Tuesday. And his thought would be that he would be reaching out to commission members to find out what times work for us, reaching out to you to find out what time works for the applicants, and also see if we can partner and get the planning board to come with us as well, so it's a joint site visit. So that's something that we've got planned.
That sounds good. No,
Yeah.
and the
For that
applicant would be
Tuesday.
happy to coordinate that.
For that Tuesday, the
For that
7th.
Tuesday, it's the day before our next meeting. Okay,
And Madam Chair, even if it doesn't work out that the planning board can meet that same day, we can certainly
Yeah.
coordinate with the commission through
Yeah.
Matt. But in any case, we'll add that information you wanted to this plan, so you
Okay.
can see.
and one of the other things that Matt wanted me to find, one of the things now that we're planning the site visit is what do we want to see located in the fields in terms of, do we want to see corners of buildings? What are some of the things that members of the commission would want to be able to walk around and see paint or whatever sprayed on the pavement to know, oh, okay, this is where, this particular corner of a building is, or stuff like that? Are there any things members of the commission would want to be able to easily locate in the field?
Like, I think most of our time is gonna be focused up near this wetland here and that one over there.
Okay.
And its relationship to the buildings, and this one is relationship to the pathway that they have that's in front of the building, so I'm thinking we're gonna be focusing some area there, so maybe some, where the building's gonna be, where the walkway's gonna be up here.
Okay.
And maybe down in this corner over here in the east, that, kind of just see where the building edges are.
You mean that you're talking here? This,
Towards Cornerstone?
Down over here,
which,
that corner, the second set of buildings.
so
Yeah,
the easterly building?
yeah, that one there.
Okay,
That'll take up enough time up there.
so.
Are there flags there currently?
Well, there will be wetland flags, which can kind of help us know where we are on the plan in relation to the wetland flag, but I think, what Matt was really driving at is things like corners of the building or other things where people would want to be able to, as they're at the site looking at the wetland, know, okay, here's the corner of the building, or this is where the decks are, just that
And
those orientations?
I don't know if it's a vertical element, Margaret, or not, but all of those building corners could be certainly painted or noted on the pavement, because they're all within the existing parking lot as it is
Okay.
today. So I don't know the easiest way to do that, but those could be easily noted that way.
So would you say that the corners the corners of the building closest to the wetlands as opposed to on the backside, farther from the wetlands? From our
I'm
perspective?
interested in proximity of the building
Okay.
to the wetland and being able to visualize that somehow.
So being able to kind of get a rough idea of where the edge of this building is gonna be, and then this edge of
Maybe that
building
one
here is,
and kind of like where the walkway is.
okay, when you say walkway, you're referring
That
to this
pathway.
wellness path?
Right.
Okay,
I think we could paint out a few points along the way.
okay,
Look
yeah,
at it.
just so that we can orient ourselves out in the field looking at the plants. Noel?
I mean, unrelated question, but kind of related to the decks. So is there anything in the O&M plan where on a schedule basis or as needed, somebody goes out and, there's litter out there in the wetlands, someone pick it up or clean up?
Yeah, so our O&M plan includes a section on vegetated area maintenance.
Okay.
So that is what you described, as well as removing, dead debris of, vegetation, that type of thing. So a general kind of spring and fall cleanup, that would also.
I'm more concerned about non-biodegradable stuff.
Yeah, it would.
Let's say
include
someone
trash.
throws a can of something, as opposed to dog poop, which, will just
Yeah.
degrade.
Or styrofoam or whatever.
Exactly,
Yeah, plastic bottles, stuff that blows around.
Mm-hmm.
And I know other red gate projects, they're always kept really clean, it'll be nice out here, but it is in the O&M plan.
Okay.
Well, the difference between this and a regular home ownership project is that we will have on-site maintenance. It's one management company that will be cleaning every day regularly, that is maintaining the structure. So it's not like you have to rely on 300 homeowners or their teenage children to pick up the trash in the backyard. There's a maintenance company that takes care of all of that.
Okay.
Yes. But the detailed plan as to the maintenance and cleaning of the resource areas will all be part of the maintenance plan.
Okay.
Yes.
No, Lauren?
The light green is marked as turf. Is it something beneficial like clover, or is it a monocropping?
So from this group, the green itself is more of a turf type tall fescue grass mix blend. It won't be just turf type tall fescue, but there will be other mixes in there. And then likewise, the blue that you're seeing, most of that's closer to the building, will be more of our shrub ground cover kind of understory planting. And then what you're seeing in kind of that, I guess I call it brown, that would be our no-mow seed areas, and we have coordinated that at the moment with basically the limit of disturbance with the civil.
So on that, why are some of, like that blue one, that here it has the two little greens, why not just make it all blue? Or have those other little greens poking out be blue?
Can you
point
just kind of walk over and put
Yeah.
your hand where you're talking?
You're talking about right here.
Like these two greens, or having those greens be blue instead of, a turf grass in theory is for people to walk on.
Yeah, we're just honestly trying to find a balance. If it's really important, it's not a big deal to grab those, but we are trying to find a balance of really.
Are those so between those little fingers of green?
Yeah, those
are
are tree islands.
So there's parking spaces between those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and that gives us the ability to get those canopy trees a little further away from the building, but it'll also give us that larger canopy, which will really help us getting more shade out onto the parking spaces and minimize the heat island effect.
So if we go down I'm not gonna do it, but if we went down to the last page, there are also the details of what goes into those three.
The trees, yes. We have not gotten to the level, we're really just getting into what the mix is. We put a list of the proposed plants for that understory layer, Margaret, but we
Okay.
don't have quantities and specific things broken out yet.
Well, no, I was just thinking in terms of, with the no-mow seeded area and the turf, whether whether there was any level of detail about what.
There is within that list, there's a blocked-in area that shows you the mix of what that
Okay.
is at the moment proposed.
Okay, so we have a preliminary
Yep.
look at what those contain.
Absolutely, it's a mix of probably 12 or 15 native species right there, but that's definitely on that last sheet.
Okay,
This plan is not showing the trees, right? That would be the
This one isn't, this was just a super
Well,
simplified,
what it-
based
oh.
on the request to say, where's the turf, where's the no-mow, and where's the planting?
so, so what are these?
Those are existing trees?
Oh, those are existing trees,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, those are big pin oaks that are out there right now. We think those were, Margaret would probably put in at the time they built
Okay.
the building itself.
Okay,
They're all in the neighborhood of 18 to 23-inch caliber trees.
okay.
It's a plan before that shows all the proposed trees.
Yes.
right?
Yeah, so that's got all the labels and the tags.
Okay.
And then I can go through one other thing if you want, kind of based on what we heard 2 weeks ago, I guess we were here. We obviously removed the walkway behind Building B, as we were talking about earlier, and what we proposed, Margaret, I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna make you,
Is this,
it might be easier to go to the colored rendered plan.
Yeah, all the way down.
If you go to the first one that Bridget had up, sorry.
I thought you meant the cut sheet.
If you go to the site plan rendered, that may be easier because we can zoom in. Yeah, go up one more without these lines for the moment. We can come back to this.
okay,
Yeah, now if you look, if you pan down so we can kind of see behind building A, the upper top, the upper one.
the upper one?
Yeah,
Oh,
Yep,
There we go.
there you
Okay.
go. And maybe, is there a way to scooch that whole thing just a little bit?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, there's a screen and I couldn't make it go down,
Yeah.
so we're stuck on the wall.
Let's see, is it, there we go.
Okay.
So, last time we were here with you guys, we had a path that went on the back side of the garages, if you remember, and it ran right here and looped around. It was kind of our edge, and so what we heard from the last meeting, certainly behind Building B, concerns of proximity. We also talked about fencing, keeping people out of the wetland. So we looked at this, and what we did in this scheme is we have moved that walkway, and we've got that hugging the, basically the parking edge. And our new route really for any of these people will be here. The loop that we had shown you guys now will essentially do this, and this is about a half a mile, and we'll wrap around. But the big move was really starting to move this walkway here. So we will have an 8-foot tall chain link fence around the pickleball court. We will have a 4-foot fence around the dog park. And then we still have the playground that's right here, and that likewise will have a 4-foot tall fence. So I guess we're curious, we felt like this was getting us to a better move to move the people away from this nature edge. And then I think somebody sent us a comment, or it came through Matt, this afternoon or late yesterday, I forget which, about a concern with the dog park here and its proximity to the wetland. So we wanted to talk with you guys if there would be something that would be more amenable, if you will, to take the dog park as shown here and flip that and get it in this location and then bring the playground up. So you're basically kind of flipping those units, or uses, excuse me, that would get the dog a little bit further away from the wetland itself. So we kind of did this, we thought we were hearing you guys, so we wanted to make.
And I like that idea, I like the idea of flipping it, and my reasoning is thinking about boisterous dogs right next to a walking path. I'm almost thinking that, you know, is if you're walking along a path and there are medium to large sized dogs running around and doing stuff, there may be some people who are uncomfortable walking close to that type of activity.
But it's fenced.
It's fenced, but in terms of, my neighbors have a fenced backyard, and when I walk down my driveway, their 2 large dogs will be standing at the edge of the fence, barking at me, running along, and it just, no, well, the hair's standing up on the back, but it just, in terms of thinking about the mix of people you've got here, you've got small children, that having less of the walkway near that area where dogs are supposed to be out burning off energy might make it a little bit more comfortable. Part of the reason I also kind of advocated for moving that path was we saw that with the limit of disturbance is that it was getting close to the wetlands because you needed to do the grading so that the wellness path met ADA grades. And so my thought after the meeting was, because the path on the east side is near the pavement, could you do that on the west side so you're not having to have all that disturbance further into the wetland buffer just to get the grade on the yeah, it just, by flags B129 and B130, the red limit of disturbance beyond the pavement went all the way practically to the wetlands edge. And when I asked about it was because the disturbance was needed to be able to make grade for the wellness path. And
So is this changed what you had in mind?
no, this is I like this.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but it just, in terms of, because my feedback through Matt was not in this public meeting,
Right.
my fellow commissioners didn't know what my comments were. So anyway, what are people's thoughts about swapping the dog park and the playground area and other components of what you're seeing here?
Makes
So I'm
sense to me.
supposed to put that playground area to the wetlands edge?
Huh?
If we flip it, right now I got the dog park. How close was that edge of that dog park to the wetlands edge?
So it's right at the 30-foot. So you'd have the playground at maybe some portion of it inside the 30-foot. And you'd have the dog park being actually partially outside the 100. What would the surfaces be on those two areas in terms of pervious?
The surfaces?
In terms of,
Okay.
yeah,
so
what's the ground like?
Yeah, so for the dog park, that would be pea stone, so it would be very permeable.
Okay,
And then for the play area, this will be obviously budget allowing, we are showing a rubber resilient surface, which is the real spongy. And that water can move through there with an aggregate base. So it is permeable if you go to any of their, the product cut sheets. But what that gives us is a really safe and low maintenance surfacing.
so is the dimensions and the orientation of the playground a little bit more flexible than the dog park? I'm just, if you swap them, is dimension-wise, would the playground be kind of more in the shape of what the dog park is in that location?
I
Or
would say we're pretty flexible, Margaret. The
Okay.
final pieces haven't been selected yet. We've
Okay.
kind of talked about a little bit more of a nature-based play element, so it's not your typical kind of bright colored post and platform. So there's got to be some flexibility there, but I'm sure we could make that work.
Okay,
I'm okay with a flip. I'd want to keep it outside of the orange line. The orange is like the 30. So there's a component of that dog park right now that's probably 20-something feet from the wetlands edge. If there was a way to
Slide
shift
it.
to fit it into that area such that, you could keep it outside of that orange line, I'm fine with that.
so maybe slide it.
Slide it down, yeah.
Slide
you see
it
where
down a little
opens
bit.
up slightly.
Yeah, okay,
If there's flexibility there, keep it out of the 30, and that's what we would want.
okay,
I mean, we'd have heartburn if it was within the 30.
okay.
And we can
We should.
manipulate that sheet to get it out of there, Eric, that's a good point. Especially where we're flipping it, and this is supposed to be more of a nature play, so we can work with that edge. So on the revised set, we can do that.
I get the corner of the pickleball court, but, I get it.
That's good to have
But,
out there.
as far as, being able to, have some flexibility with, the kids' play area, that's fine.
No.
Yeah, and honestly, I know it's still in that corner area, but if it makes a difference, we made sure that the corner of that did not encroach outside what is the currently paved parking lot. If
Appreciate
that makes a
that.
difference, but.
Yep,
Okay.
it does.
And not that it's germane to the Conservation Commission, but we did roll it out to the planning board that all of these amenities will be open to the public. So
Correct,
the
correct.
pathway and all the amenities, the pickleball court, the dog park and all of that will be open up to residents of the town of Westford, not just the residents of this.
That'll be pretty interesting.
Good luck
No.
with that.
I don't know how you're gonna monitor that one.
The town will finally have a dog park.
Yeah, dog park. The pickleball, you said the fencing is 8 feet?
Yes.
Is that standard?
Yes.
Because I played, where I played in Brussels, at least 10 or 12.
Yeah, so if you're more of a, I
And the
don't
ball
want to call
was
it
going
a
out like
pro,
7 times a day.
but more of a more, I guess, competitive, it's 10.
Aggressive.
More aggressive, that's the, that's
And the ball would go out like several times a day when we used to play.
Yeah.
So I could see it going out into the wetlands.
You're gonna need somebody to chase it, is that
Well, that, and so people trampling in the wetlands.
Okay,
something
I
to
don't know,
consider?
Yeah.
You'd put a higher fence, is that it?
Right.
or on that side,
On that side, yeah.
oh, so on the east side of the courts?
On the east and maybe the back end there, the, what's that, north?
Mhm.
Okay, moving on.
Either that or by not making a taller fence, netting is easily added to the top of these play
Netting is
fences.
fine.
And that way you don't
Yeah.
have a, a 10-foot cage around you. You can do the 8-foot fence with netting at the
That's
top.
fine.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, is there anything else we need to cover at
I
this point?
think it at least answered the questions, the
Yeah.
requests from the last meeting.
Yes.
I think we've incorporated those with the documents that we brought. Margaret,
Thank
if
you.
we miss anything, please let us know.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions from members of the audience? No. Okay.
Madam Chair, so as to the site visit, I don't know if you want to pick a date or if you just want to defer to your conservation agent to try to
Tuesday,
schedule the
that's 7th.
7th.
Yeah, Tuesday,
Okay,
April
that's
7th.
perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Matt will be following up, but yeah,
Time.
Wonderful.
yeah, with, to find out what times are good for people. Okay. So, we're waiting to hear back from Ty and Bond on their review of the porous pavement. In terms of other stuff for us, I will be the first to admit that I haven't had a chance to go through the O&M plan yet to kind of look at it. I don't know if other people have stuff that they want to take a more in-depth look at, providing additional feedback or questions? No.
Not yet.
Okay. So should we continue, the plan would be to continue the public hearing until April 8th, and then we can also talk about the results of the site visit?
Be great, thank you.
Okay. Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing till April 8th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
It's so crazy for me to think of that.
Yeah. Terry, you are being incredibly patient.
Dig him out of
Second one here.
Yeah.
Been an education.
Okay. Well, actually, Terry, there's one quick thing we need to get through, and then you're up. So Matt issued an emergency certification to the Town of Westford DPW for the Bridge Street culvert replacement that had the road closed because of a sinkhole. And
You just have to
he's,
sign that, right?
huh?
We just have to sign that, right?
We just need to ratify the emergency certificate that so can I have a motion to ratify the emergency certificate?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's it.
Terry?
Well, thanks. Greetings, everybody. So I came, Margaret attended our last Monuments and Memorials Committee meeting. The applicant has come to us to put up a monument in town to honor the mill workers. And the ideal location was to try and put it actually on the mill property, but that the owner has not been acceptable to that proposal. So the original proposal came through to put it at the corner, at the intersection, there's a triangle at Patton and Pleasant. Originally, we thought that the scope of this monument is 9 feet tall, 12 feet wide, and about 4 foot deep. And it has, in the package was some pictorials and the dimensions and everything else. So we looked at a couple different things. We thought the site because of that's a kind of a busy intersection during a school session and everything else, we thought the sight lines might be something to be an obstacle. So we are actually pursuing that location and continuing to, the applicant wants us to look at that. I've talked to both the DPW and both fire and police chiefs, and we're gonna put up a mock-up over there. So that's gonna be done now that the snow is cleared. The designer and the donor, who's the applicant's going to put up some kind of a mock-up, and we're going to get some drawings on that, which we do not have right now. We were waiting a little bit for the snow to melt. And both the applicant is out of state at the moment, and she will be returning shortly. So that was the initial location. When we thought it was going to be a visual impairment for sighting because of traffic, we looked at some other locations, which is something that Matt wrote back, and the commission had asked, your Conservation Commission has asked whether we had other locations. So one of the other locations was in front of Spinners. That also is probably going to get ruled out because it's a high traffic intersection, and it might be that you don't want people peeping at it and driving off into wherever. So we looked at a couple places over across from Franco, over by the ball fields, the VFW, not the VFW, but the ball fields that are over there. And we've looked at a station over near Station 3 over by the fire station. But again, and then the location came up from my experience with Freedom Park as having the past Veterans Service officer in town. I remembered there was a small piece of property that comes up from Freedom Park that has frontage on Pleasant Street. And I'm thinking, well, there's about a 50-foot, 45-foot section of land between 2 Pond and 10 Pleasant, or 1 Pond, yeah, well anyways, 2 Pond Street. That is a possibility that would put it almost right in front of the Abbott Mill, which is what this monument is intended to honor, is the folks that worked at this. So Historical Commission, Historical Society, a number of people, DPW, a number of committees and boards and town staff have looked at this, and we just thought we would. No definitive location has been defined right now. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that twice. Has been designed, but we thought we would like to have the Conservation Commission at least chime in and be aware that, is this a possibility? We're asking, the applicant has asked us if this is a possibility. So that's really where we're at. We haven't made a decision one way or another. We are going to have to put a mock-up over at the Pleasant and Patton intersection. There's some sidewalks going to be put in over there. We are concerned about parking. People might want to get out and view it. We're trying to look at locations. There's some parking that's available, obviously, in Freedom Park there to be able to walk up. There was no intention to improve the property from the park proper up to it. It's all wooded. It's a very steep incline. We don't want to have people accessing that. It would be from Pleasant Street only. There was a sidewalk in front. There is some brush, and I do think that, so Matt had put together some bullets that came out of the commission, and just wanted to kind of go through those. Preliminary size and scope of the site is exactly what it is. There would be a foundation, and the monument would be secured to that foundation. So it would be the same size as the footing of the monument itself. So again, it was it's 9 feet high, it's 14 feet wide, and about 4.5 feet deep. How far into the parcel? We'd like to move it as close as we can to the front of the sidewalk, to the front of the parcel. So again, we don't want to go back too far, because there's after about 20 feet, it starts a pretty rapid decline to go down the hill. So it would be at front. How much of it is temporary and disturbance? Minimal disturbance at all to the property. We do want to make sure that the location that the Conservation Commission decides on where they would like to see it placed on the property, is free of brush, so that there's not brush laying against it or trees or anything else. There might be some trimming. It's kind of a brushy area. The town maintains that for that property. Was one of the questions, who will maintain the area surrounding it? It's already being maintained by,
Not up by the street though. So,
so somebody mows up there.
okay, that may be in a butter.
Oh, okay. Well, whoever takes care of it now, I figure will take care of it in the future.
Very few people take care of it now.
No, this is up the.
On Pleasant Street.
Up by Pleasant Street.
I'm talking up on Pleasant Street. I know down below, yeah.
It's been a long-term problem.
That's been a long-term problem down there, correct? Yeah,
And
we've
it's
talked
even
to,
longer term, nothing's been done up by the roadway.
no. But somebody mows it, and I think it gets mowed by the town, Parks and Rec, or whoever is responsible for that.
Well, it may also be in a butter who thinks it's theirs.
Oh,
We've
interesting.
had that happen, especially when it's town property.
Yeah. Well, this will go in front of DPW as
Okay.
well, the proposal. So so just to kind of give you an idea, what happens, Monuments and Memorials was chartered by the Select Board back in 2022, just to make sure that we didn't become a monument capital, so that there was a, monuments weren't just being thrown up around town, benches, whatever. So they've asked us to screen it. So our idea, our goal and our purpose in the Monuments and Memorials is just to put together a package with the applicant, make sure that all departments, town staff, everybody has a view, boards and committees have a view of the applicant and what it's going to be, and then submit it to the Select Board for approval or denial or suggestions to go from there. So that's kind of where we're at. We're just helping the applicant put it together, and we're trying to help them, to make sure we get the right information to them. Ongoing maintenance, the maintenance is being provided ongoing from, on this monument. It is going to be provided by the donor. I can tell you that in Veteran Services, we used to have a budget for maintaining all the monuments, the war memorials and everything else around town, but that was removed about 10 years ago. And now it's completely funded by organizations within town, charitable organizations like Westford Remembers, who put the 9/11 monument up. So it's organizations like that that are now providing it, and free services from the community at large. So it's.
So you're saying the donor
They're going to the bronze and
perpetuity?
that they're going to have an annual maintenance project, right? They're going to maintain the actual monument
But
in perpetuity, so to speak. Yeah.
because none of us live forever.
I know.
But they might put it in their will.
So that's
But it's it's who has custody of the funds.
I don't know. But
Yeah,
I'm saying,
and
if
it
was
just
in a will, you'd know
Wow.
that.
Right.
Jim?
That's, I was wondering who's gonna do that,
we don't have a budget for any of our monuments in town.
right?
None.
And this is a pretty
So
big-
once
pretty
this
big
gets
monstrosity,
great.
10 feet tall and 9 feet tall.
Well, you take a look at the John Robinson horse or the others, the Civil War monuments in the center of town. I mean, we have some, this is, it just is an issue ongoing, and when the need is there, we seem to find the money to do it within.
We have such big problems with maintaining our properties and keeping them clean, things like East Boston camps, things like the Pond Street
Right.
Veterans Park.
Oh, sure, right.
That's been problematic, it really has.
Well.
So are we allowed to put a structure like this on this property? I mean, is it restricted in any way?
It's under our care and custody. It was bought by the town in 1989 to protect water quality and open space. It served as a pocket park for the neighborhood.
So recently, a monument was added there in
Yeah.
front of Freedom Park, in front of the gazebo for Mr. Sullivan. So it's completely your call for that property. Obviously, the select board has the ultimate authority. They're the holder of the land. You are the trustee, so to speak.
And I guess, is
There is no insurance, there's no cost to insure. The workers that will be bonded for.
No, but we're
that-
talking about, for example, insurance,
Somebody climbed
in-
on it and fell off.
if it gets damaged by vandalism, if it gets,
If little Johnny falls off of it, when he's climbing it.
or somebody decides to tag it with spray paint, you know, is in terms of what's the town's liability?
That's a good question. I do not know that. I'd have to go to town council and ask that question.
I was just gonna suggest that it might be useful to find out from town council what is needed to be safe.
Well,
And then we can say,
So-
is that something that we can
And, but
consider?
also, because this is a bronze statue, one of the things is that it requires,
Certain amount of care.
inspection, yeah, that it may need to be coated every year or protect, you know, every year or every other year, and it's, you know, some of it also is, who ends up being responsible for making sure that happens?
So the applicant has agreed to pay for that, and they are going to contract. So the person that's
Yeah.
making this, is the same designer that put the Tom Brady statue up at Foxborough, okay? So he's quite renowned, very reputable. And he has agreed to provide the service to the donor, and the donor has indicated in their proposal they will do annual inspection and maintenance on that monument.
We should get them.
At least one, and it's in their.
Yeah,
in their-
but it just, you know, is,
We should get the liability question
we should get the liability, but some of it also is, as we're seeing with our properties, when stuff gets down 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades after something is installed, you start to, the vendor's not there, or the people, you know, is, in terms of making sure that that stuff happens every year or every other year, is who bears that responsibility
Right.
forever?
No, I understand it. I mean, there's been organizations that have peaked and declined.
Yes.
Granville Pride, the Forge Village Preservation Committee. I mean, these organizations got a really nice start. Things got happen, and then they went away. So then they counted on outside the community itself to provide that. So provide those resources.
I'd like to see what the attorney would say. I'd like to ask a certain
Yeah.
number of questions to an attorney and get clearance for us.
Well, but
To
some of
take
it
a
also,
vote.
you know, it is, when you look at what's happened to our granite benches.
Yeah, but
and
he's
the-
giving us,
No, and the challenge that we've had in terms of working with the vendors, getting somebody in place to get it dealt with. You know, and what we went through with Garside, for getting a bench
that was-
replaced, you know, is,
I had that with my husband's grave.
yeah,
so we had that.
it's just that, it's great when everything goes right, and when it doesn't go right, it becomes a headache.
Yeah, but if we can
I
get an
agree.
attorney, if we had an attorney's ruling on the questions that we have and what.
Okay.
I would have to ask
Then we
that.
could decide whether or not we would do
I think
something
that's a
like this.
pretty good general one, because we've had Parks and Rec put up benches, allow benches for Dr. A over, you know, I mean, so what if a child falls off a bench? I mean, you know,
Well, and it
there's
just-
gotta be some general liability that the town is already, and once we accept it,
But, I'm just thinking of, you know, thinking of bronze being metal and being an attractive opportunity for somebody who's looking to earn a little extra money.
maybe we'll come up with
Chop it, you mean scrap it?
yeah, scrap it.
Or just, yeah, I mean, I don't,
A recycling commissioner would be interested.
I would just like a ruling from an attorney.
yeah, it just, in terms
All
of,
the things you can think of, and then we talk about it as.
yeah,
to
what are the town's liability, and some of it is also, you know, that the people here behind the table are not going to be on this commission forever, is also what responsibilities are we taking on for the people who come after us? You know, you talk about, committees that come out of the gate really strong, and then we're finding that with the Friends of East Boston camps. You know,
Right, I
they've
know,
disbanded, and it just,
Yeah, we've had that discussion
yeah, and
amongst us as residents, yes.
yeah, is
absolutely, right.
finding people to pick it up, and it's the, you know, it's the things that we're creating for the people that come after us.
That's why I would love to hear from the attorney.
Well, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I mean, I got it, I understand that, and it's the same questions we asked there too.
Yeah.
With any application, again, but, you know, so we'll present it and
Okay.
well, I'll ask that question, I'll see if I can go to the town manager and we can't ask council ourselves directly, we
No,
need to
but-
go through them, but.
I'd like to see that in writing and then make it, you know,
Yeah.
some kind of learned.
Because
Yes or no.
it doesn't
Not on-
apply just to this, it applies for, you know, granite benches are one thing because they're fairly solid, but as people come up with new stuff, you know, sometimes at the end of the day, it falls on the, you know, it comes back to the town and,
I agree,
yep,
I mean, we have this all over the place right now. Yeah.
yep,
Right, okay.
okay. Well,
So are there other questions, anything, I mean, is there anything that you, again, I wasn't looking for a decision tonight, obviously, we're still trying to figure out whether we wanna, which of the locations is gonna be ideal. But this particular property, because it's right across from where the mill workers were at, we just thought it might be a suitable location in proximity to the historic site itself, so that's why it came up.
any other questions or?
Do we need to make a motion about the attorney?
No,
No, no.
well, no, I think,
No, we're
I'll
just
do
giving
that.
direction.
yeah, I think Terry's.
Chair, I'm gonna
Just
go
ask
ask that question as it came up in
I'd
our
like to see that in
discussions.
writing. That's-
Yep.
We'll get that and I'll make sure that it goes back to Matt. Matt and I've been, and Margaret have been on correspondence, so.
Okay.
Anyways, so I just wanted to give you guys a fair shot of
Well, thank you for
asking me
coming.
questions.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you for
Again,
coming and
I'm
being
not
in
the
person.
applicant. We're not, we're just
Yeah.
helping the
Spread the
applicant
message.
put this together so we can
I'm just
try and
teasing.
get all the answers we can, so.
Mhm. Yep. Oh,
Okay.
and we appreciate that, yeah, you know,
And great, Ann, I thought somebody had a question?
No.
Okay, very
Thank
good,
you.
thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Terry, is there an April meeting?
We have an April, yeah, we meet
No,
on
I'm
the
just saying, let
first.
me know if there is, I haven't heard.
This is Monuments and Memorials, and you're on
Oh,
the cemetery.
yes.
Cemetery, I
Yeah,
will.
yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm also cemetery commission. We don't,
Just
you
let
know,
me
it's a
know.
good question. We don't restrict what people can put up for headstones either.
but are the headstones their responsibility of the family with the cemetery?
Probably the family.
Probably, it is the family, but
Okay.
there are
Dude, I
headstones
just
here
been
that are
buried
no
and we don't
longer,
have a headstone.
there's no family left.
That's down on the flat.
Oh, that's true.
My
Oh,
box
yeah.
is just on the ground.
That's an ongoing issue we have, and we've addressed it.
Are any
And
of
we
our,
take care of it in perpetuity as well.
are any of our cemeteries heavy on the residents of mill workers?
Ooh,
What?
Say it again, Jim?
Are any of our cemeteries filled with mill workers?
Well,
Of that age group?
you know, the Russian Brotherhood Cemetery,
That was all.
that is,
It is an idea.
but that's a private cemetery, so it's not owned by the town. We have two privates, the St.
So it would have
Catherine's.
been Abbott Mills, we
And
tried,
Russian
we tried
Brotherhood.
that property also, and that was private. So
Say
it
again?
Abbott Mills.
Just because something's private doesn't mean you can't try.
Well, I think they did try it, Abbott, and
Yeah,
it
they
didn't
did.
seem to
Right, so that's-
get a
so that's
favorable
one.
response.
So how about the
Russian
private cemetery, you were talking about the Russian cemetery? That's an opportunity too.
There's, yeah,
Yeah.
well, we can
Well,
talk about
let-
it offline.
and, yeah, I mean, let's get the answers to the questions, let's see if, you know, if,
If this is something that's, we can make.
well, and see how the other sites fare. You know, if it looks like it's gonna work well, where Patton Road comes into Pleasant, yeah,
If
that
we had
would,
all our questions answered, we'd have a
Yeah.
better vote.
yeah, well, and at
Keep
this,
you advised
yeah.
as to whether, you know, where you're at in the, on the list of property to take a look at, so.
okay,
But we wanted to at least get you out in front of this so that you know
Sure.
what's going on. And
Thank you very much, and
Great.
thank you for the conversation.
You're welcome.
Okay, next on the agenda is a discussion whether the commission wants to take positions on annual town meeting warrant. So, do we want to, from talking with Matt, I believe there'll be an all boards meeting running along with the town meeting, so that if we need to huddle and talk about something, we can. Does anybody see a need of us, well, first of all, who's planning to attend town meeting? Okay,
pretty
so
good.
we'll all be
Oh my
there.
God, yeah, that's pretty
Does
good.
anybody see a need of gathering to have a conversation before the meeting starts?
No, I don't see what else you're gonna discuss.
Okay, I'm just asking
Yes,
the
I
question.
do.
Yeah, so we can just leave the all boards meeting if there's something we need to talk about. Does anybody, looking at the items on the warrant, is there anything that, a member, anyone have thoughts about something the commission might want to take a position on? And no is a perfectly acceptable answer. I'm asking questions.
The silence speaks for itself.
Okay. In that case, let's move on. So, there's been no further response to outreach from Chris Franklin at 69 Broad Street. I know Matt's been trying to get back in touch with all the enforcement in progress and monitoring, but to be honest, the last week or two has all been lining up for town meeting because we've got our 2 CPC requests. For funding, Matt's got the information. If there are any questions from the floor about it, he can speak to it. And then we've already talked about, the one last thing. The Grace Church at 134 Littleton Road, they're going to be coming in, or they have already submitted a request for a partial certificate of compliance. They have asked the commission to do a site visit. No date set yet, but I guess they want us to come out and look at what they've done and, so that we can see it in the field
They have a
before
huge population
we
that goes
discuss the COC request. So the thought would be for Matt to reach out via email for what days and times work well for people.
Okay.
Okay?
Could do it on the 7th. Up from there, It's on Littleton also, right?
Well, yeah, but thinking about the size of the Littleton site, the 219, and how much we're gonna look at, are you really gonna feel like walking around another site afterwards?
That was 2 big sites, yeah.
This
Yeah.
is the fire pits, right?
No, this is the
Great site.
whole development of
It's
the,
huge.
the whole
It's
site.
huge.
Yeah.
The parking around the pond, near the fireplace, near the.
There's
Yeah.
wetlands around where they were gonna have a nature trail off.
Trail,
It basically, the order of
Little
conditions covered the entire development of the site.
We need a little car to take us around.
Yeah, I
Golf
think
cart.
we'll do that one by itself.
Yeah, okay, so Matt will reach out to line up some times for that. Is there anything else?
Enforcement in progress monitoring.
Yeah, Matt's reaching out to, now that the snow is off the ground, where are people with their activities?
So,
I'm just looking at my list of stuff. I think that was all the stuff I was supposed to bring up or ask. Okay. So, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.